We have been trying to understand the short-run phenomena, and as a first step we'll try to understand short-run production function, and in this and subsequent videos what we'll do is we'll try to understand short-run cost function. And in the short run we treat labor as the variable input. By this we mean the management can change number of workers, and we treat capital, which essentially refers to non-labor inputs, as a fixed input. Since there are two inputs, labor and capital, and let us assume that each worker is paid a wages of W and capital is paid rent denoted by R, and so total cost will be wage times number of workers and rent times capital, and we know labor is the variable input, and so the cost associated with labor, which is wages times labor, will be our variable cost. And since we are treating capital as a fixed input, the cost associated with capital will be called total fixed cost, or we can abbreviate total variable cost as TVC and total fixed cost as TFC. So TC, which is total cost, is equal to total variable cost plus total fixed cost. Now, just as an example, let us assume that each worker is paid $25 and the firm rents a building for $25. Now, we know labor is the variable input, so we can figure out the total variable cost depending on how many workers the firm hires. And then the firm rents a building, and this rent has to be paid irrespective of how much output is produced by the firm, or in other words, rent can be treated as fixed cost. Now consider the following table. In the first three columns we have exactly the same numbers we had in our production function. So in a way, based on our short-run production function, we are trying to figure out various costs when each worker is paid $25 and the rent of the building is $25 as well. Now look at the easier cost first, which is the fixed cost. Look at capital. Irrespective of how much output is produced by the firm, which is denoted in the third column, the total amount of capital used or the rent paid on the building is a fixed amount, and we know what is the rent. It is $25. So when the firm produces no output, what is total fixed cost? It is $25. When the firm produces, say, 5 units of output, what is the total fixed cost? It is $25. Or in other words, this cost does not depend on the level of output. This is something which the firm has to incur irrespective of how the business is doing. Now let us look at the cost associated with labor, and labor we know is a variable input. Each worker is paid $25. So when the firm hires no workers, what is total variable cost? It is nothing. When the firm hires one worker, what is the total variable cost? It will be 1 times 25, and that will be 25. When the firm hires two workers, what is the variable cost? It will be 2 times 25, and that will be 50. And in this way we can calculate total variable cost. Now look at the following. As we vary total variable cost, as we vary number of workers, total variable cost changes. And as we vary number of workers, the firm produces different quantities of output. And so the difference between TVC and TFC, total variable cost and total fixed cost, is even when the firm produces nothing or hires no workers, the firm will still incur the total fixed cost. But as far as the variable cost goes, it will be zero when the firm produces nothing, based on the fact that it hires no workers. Now, on the previous slide, we saw that total cost can be broken down into total variable and total fixed cost. So when we add up these two costs, what we get is total cost of production. And so how much is total cost of production when the firm produces nothing? It will be $25, and it's entirely the fixed cost. When the firm produces or uses one worker, the total variable cost is 25. The total fixed cost is 25, or total cost of production becomes 50. Or essentially what we are doing is we are simply adding numbers in each row for TVC and TFC, and this will give us total cost. In this chart, what we have is the following. Let us represent cost, various types of cost: total fixed cost, total variable cost, and total cost, as in dollars on the vertical axis. And on the horizontal axis, what we have is total quantity of output, which is represented by letter Q. And so we do this, and the reason for doing this is we are trying to figure out how much it costs to a firm when it produces different levels of output. The easiest curve to see is this horizontal line, and this is the total fixed cost, and this is a cost that the firm incurs irrespective of how much it produces. And so this cost, total fixed cost, is a fixed number, and it does not depend on the output level, and this number is fixed at $25. So we have a horizontal line representing the total fixed cost. Next, what we do is we plot points relating to total variable cost, and as output varies, we can see total variable cost goes on increasing. So when the firm produces 5 units of output, and how does it produce 5 units of output? By using one labor. Remember, that's the marginal product of labor when we employ the first worker, and that is $25. When the firm produces, say, 12 units of output, the total variable cost associated with that is $50. And in this way, we plot these points, and this blue curve represents TVC, and we see a relationship between TVC and output, and that is, as we increase output, total variable cost goes on increasing. And then we have points relating to total cost, which is a sum of total variable and total fixed cost. And we have these numbers, we plot them, and what we get is a total cost or TC curve. Now note the difference between TVC and TC, and the difference between TC and TVC is simply the total fixed cost. And so this vertical distance between these two curves, this vertical distance, what we have here is total fixed cost, the amount of total fixed cost. And we know total fixed cost is a fixed number, and that simply means TVC is being lifted up by a fixed amount of $25, or in other words, total cost and total variable cost curves are parallel to one another.